You ever look for your birth certificate? Yeah, no, because it's impossible. Such a small, easily losable piece of thing that you're supposed to keep for years and years and years. That's why people sell theirs for so much on eBay these days. And my doctor and I can't help but realize that's kind of like Mario. Of course, I mean early video game boxes. I feel like that was kind of obvious. These cardboard-made little gremlins are very cool to me. But they're just like those darn birth certificates, so delicate and easily losable. People just throw these away in a matter of seconds, which is what makes them so rare. You're definitely not going to find as many games complete in box as you're going to find them loose. Because, exactly quoting someone from the 80s, I don't care about the video game box. Yeah, if you walk into a store, you're not going to find many complete in box games. And if you do, definitely not as many as loose games, especially for older consoles. Which is a shame because, like I said earlier, I really like these boxes. But that makes complete in box collecting all the more fun in my opinion. And that is what I want to waste my afternoon talking about. The pros and cons of collecting games complete in box. You'd be surprised how much I have to say about this topic actually. This is good? That's bad. What does that mean? Let me introduce you to one of my favorite acronyms in all of, I like it. Complete in box. This phrase means that the game being addressed contains everything the original packaging came with, excluding the plastic wrap on everything because that would be a sealed game. Don't get them confused. People who buy sealed games are insane, and people who buy CIB games, okay, actually, just never mind, everyone's crazy. A CIB game usually means the game is included, the box it came in, and also the manual and other inserts. And I love getting this stuff, as I said. Getting a new game is already great and all, but having the original cardboard box with it adds an extra dose of I paid for this and ooh for around 10 seconds. It's also great to show when talking about a game. In terms of the manual, I love them too, but honestly not as much as the boxes. I still think manuals are cooler because there's just so much art in them and tips and words, but I'm never really gonna look at a game manual again after I buy the game for the first time, spend 5 minutes glazing through it and saying, wow. It's just because I'd have to open up the box again, which I don't like doing because every time I damage the box more and more, which is why I store my CIB games themselves outside of their boxes. It's a bit counterintuitive, I know, but I don't want to damage the box. So why collect complete in box anyways? Well, for me, it grants me the extra satisfaction of knowing I have the game the way it was supposed to originally be bought, which distracts me from how late I got to buying Yoshi's Cookie. It's like, if I'm collecting these games that I can mostly already play on newer consoles with Nintendo Switch Online, ports, and other legacy content offerings, I might as well go all the way with it and get everything it originally came with. Plus, sometimes games get very unique with their packaging and inserts. I have 2 specific examples myself. For one, Mario is Missing originally came with a foldable paper map, which was just adding on to how cool this game is. Sure, this is pretty useless in all senses of the term, but hey, I like it. Something more on the useful side is Star Tropics for NES. If you don't know what this game is, I'm disappointed, but also unsurprised. I just heard on the news the other day that every day less people know about Star Tropics. It's pretty much an action-adventure game on the NES, where you play as some kid named Mike trying to save his uncle. The reason I'm talking about this is because it came with a letter his uncle wrote, but actually packaged. And at one point, you actually have to dip it in water, and it reveals a code. How cool is that? People are still unsure to this day if this was actually an anti-piracy measure made by Nintendo, because the code on this paper was the only way to find the code. You could not progress if you didn't have the piece of paper. So yeah, the letter is necessary in beating this game, or yeah, just whatever, just use that. Yeah, you could use the internet, but personally I'd still like a piece of paper that can be dipped in water, because the home budget just isn't cutting it.
Where's the code?
But yeah, that's why I and many other people like collecting their games complete in box. It just allows for a more authentic experience. Oh wait. Okay, that's true 90s fashion. Now that's authentic. I guess I also like them because you get to experience the games in their true form, but it doesn't really matter, just look at the funny box. But for all the great things that exist in the world, there's always Pokemon Rumble World, death, and people who don't like collecting games CIB. Okay, so why don't a lot of people care about the original manual and box for these games?
Hi, I'm gonna show you. I want to show you. Make sure to like,
Yeah, some people think that there isn't a point in owning these because you can just pull up things like manuals anywhere as a PDF. Like, almost every game manual is uploaded somewhere online, and that is a fair argument. Also, collecting games complete in box is just so much more expensive, and sometimes it can be fairly cheap, but other times the gap between a loose game's price and that same game but CIB is thousands of dollars. Now, realistically, for most games people would regularly buy, the price is usually about a $50 difference, specifically for more iconic games like Mario Bros. Oh my god! Another problem with collecting CIB games is space. Some people don't have unlimited space to store games, and usually collecting a game box is more space than just a game itself. And when you're someone like me who stores their games separate from their box, that creates even more clutter on a shelf. So it makes sense why these people wouldn't want to buy CIB games. But overall, when I hear people make these arguments about buying loose games instead of CIB, I ask, why are you even collecting loose games in the first place? I like buying complete in-box games because it feels more authentic. And that's the same reason you would buy something like Sonic 2. You could get this on modern consoles for much cheaper, yet you still choose to buy the original game on original hardware just without the box. I get if your arguments are space and money, that's perfectly fine, but authenticity-wise, of course, some people who argue against CIB games argue against getting original games at all, which is fair. If you're one of those people who'd prefer to play a game on NSO instead, that's fine, and I understand that. They definitely have their pros and cons. But this is just how I like to collect games. I like the authenticity and coolness factor of it all, and even though I of course still buy a majority of my games loose, I honestly still intend on eventually either selling it and buying a CIB copy, or buying the box and manual separately. However, I gotta mention that CIB collecting gets less and less interesting throughout the generations of gaming. Because games came in cardboard boxes, it made them rarer to find because people actively threw them away, and more rewarding when you found one. This is why I also tend to go for manuals. If I'm already getting a rare box, I might as well just finish the job. But when it comes to plastic case games and onwards, I don't care about the manuals much for whatever reason. From the PS1 and GameCube and everything after them, I don't really mind the fact that a game might come without the manual. The box is a necessity for me though. I do not want loose discs laying around. They could get damaged very easily. But also, plastic cases are just always cheaper. So for things like Switch games and DS games, even though they come with cartridges, I'll never buy a loose one. Except for the Sega Genesis. I'll buy a loose Genesis game because not every game came with a clamshell case. For example, Sonic and Knuckles. Why is it cardboard? I just don't care much if there isn't good consistency. I heavily mind that stuff.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's show, The Pronounced Chuckle with Bean 652.
Thank you so much. So the economy, right? Yeah, it's not good, but I have an alternative to CIB collecting that's in the same vein as it, but with a fraction of the price. Why are you laughing at that? When it comes to complete in-box games, the main addition to the price compared to the loose version is the box itself, and not the manual. This is because players usually kept their manuals alongside games, but still threw away the original box. So great, manuals are easy to get. But what about boxes on a budget? What if you want to store your games in something more protective than just leaving these cartridges out in the open? Well, let me introduce you to the wonderfully weird world of reproduction boxes. Reproduction boxes are effectively aftermarket versions of old game boxes. Like I said, the old boxes themselves can be pretty expensive to get sometimes, so having repros would naturally make them much cheaper. I'd separate these boxes into two categories. The first is literally just reproductions of the cardboard boxes. You could honestly just buy boxes like these on Etsy for like $3 a piece. They're pretty neat and great if you want your collection to look more authentic without the somewhat steep price and not be worried about damaging them because, again, $3 a piece. Plus, they look good as new. However, the second category of these are the kind I find much more interesting. Custom game boxes. These take certain games for a console's library and make new kinds of boxes for them. This usually means removing the fact that they're cardboard, I pray to these every night, and replaces it with actual clamshell cases. And there are so many of these too. So many colors and types, and for different consoles, they're great. This is a spectacular alternative for getting original game boxes, and sometimes honestly just a better way to store games. Your games would be much safer in a clamshell case than just some flimsy piece of cardboard. I personally am not looking to use many of these myself though. I mean, like I said, I love the authenticity of those original boxes, and while these custom ones are just better in every way, since I already have some real console boxes, These unofficial ones might just look weird next to them. I also am not a huge fan of simple cardboard repros. I don't like those because I just wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing my DuckTales NES box is fake. But again, that doesn't mean I don't highly recommend these. I've seen so many people use these cases, and to be honest, I'm not super looking into buying Game Boy games CIB, so I might actually buy some cases for Game Boy games specifically. If you're interested at all, I would highly recommend the site CustomGameCases.com, especially for Nintendo games. They make custom cases for all Nintendo consoles with cardboard boxes, plus DS if you need any new ones. And I especially like the Game Boy ones because they go in DS cases, so all the Nintendo handheld boxes would actually look nice together on a shelf. Plus, they do have Sega Genesis, 32X, and Game Gear game cases on top of that, including a custom clamshell case for Sonic and Knuckles. Oh man, finally an answer to why the world was created. Overall, when collecting games complete in box, things can definitely get a little dicey. People might not have the money or space to do it, and even if you do, you might not want to waste it on some random piece of cardboard that doesn't really do anything. And I get that. If you're interested in collecting any old games, I wouldn't put any pressure on you to buy any of them CIB. I barely do it myself. And I do like the authenticity and feel of collecting games CIB, but it doesn't really matter. It's just a piece of cardboard. It won't really do anything. But hey, no matter what you do, at least you're not buying sealed games. I really don't know what's going on there.